An aircraft carrier is undoubtedly tough and exhausting. Sailors on an aircraft carrier are responsible for a wide range of tasks, and they often work long hours in challenging conditions. One of those challenges is the limited space and privacy available on an aircraft carrier. The ship is crowded with personnel and equipment, and sailors have to share small, cramped living quarters with several other people. There's also limited downtime and opportunities for leisure activities, as the ship is always on the move and sailors are often busy with their duties. Additionally, sailors on an aircraft carrier may face challenges related to being away from home and their loved ones for extended periods of time. Deployments can last for several months, and sailors may not have regular opportunities to communicate with their families or take leave. Yet it can also be exhilarating, especially for the men and women who work on the flight deck piloting jets and landing on a stretch of runway. What is it like to live and work on a U.S. Navy ship in the middle of the sea? An aircraft carrier is a ship with a flight deck that serves as a runway for aircraft. At the most basic level, an aircraft carrier is one of the strongest assets a Navy can have. The ship can reach speeds of more than 35 knots, allowing them to travel across the ocean in weeks. Aircraft carriers are currently stationed around the world, ready to deploy at any time. If the U.S. Navy wants to make a big impression, it does so not only by the size of this huge ship, but also by the frenzy and organization on the flight deck. When the ship is fully operational, the crew can launch or land a plane every 25 seconds, taking up only a fraction of the space of a standard runway. How do they operate in the middle of the ocean? To begin with, most people have little access to the outside world. The flight deck, hangar and fantail all boast a stunning view of the sea and sky, but they are also very busy and very dangerous, and only a few people are allowed to visit during normal operations. The highest levels of the island are secure, but due to sensitive operations and limited space, many individuals cannot come and depart. A sailor who works below decks may not see daylight for weeks at a time. Aircraft carriers are essentially floating cities, so they have many of the same types of facilities that you would find on land. Some of the facilities that might be available aboard a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier include a galley or a kitchen that serves meals for up to 6,000 sailors, a grocery store, recreational areas for relaxation and leisure activities, a gym for physical fitness, a medical clinic for basic medical care, and much more, which you wouldn't expect. Of course, the specific facilities available will depend on the size and the configuration of the carrier. The goal is to provide sailors with the amenities they need to live and work comfortably while at sea. Feeding all the sailors on an aircraft carrier requires that over 17,300 meals are prepared daily by a team of just over 100 sailors. That seems like some kind of culinary miracle. So how are these huge numbers of sailors fed daily? Food has consistently been regarded as one of the most significant aspects of service in the United States Navy. Early on, a good meal was an important factor in recruitment. Sailors wanted to know that they would be well fed, which was a huge issue in early America because the food was not nearly as diverse as our eating habits are today. So sailors needed to know that they would be well-nourished. Sailors who worked on labor-intensive sailing ships burnt more than 4,000 calories a day due to the job's physical demands. The crew's health was another reason food was so essential. After all, if a crew isn't feeling well, they won't be able to carry out their responsibilities. Sailors would congregate in the same living quarters and eat their meals together. This allowed the chef to prepare food freshly for each mess. As ships became more technologically advanced, so did the system and the reasoning behind feeding. The crew messes continued to serve as the fundamental unit for the provision of food to groups of service members, but their size and scope expanded along with the expansion of new ships. Now you know where sailors eat, so where exactly does the culinary magic that goes into preparing more than 17,000 meals each day take place? All the cooking is done in the galleys. The culinary specialists were responsible for running the galleys on board the ships, which was the area where the food was produced. Unrated sailors, bakers, ship's cooks, ship's butchers, and a chief commissary steward were all part of the culinary specialists' crew. The commissary steward was responsible for maintaining the accounts, distributing food to the cooks, and providing assistance to the head cook in the process of meal planning. On most ships, the galley consisted of a kitchen, a station for butchering meat, and a bakery. The majority of the equipment was enormous, so that it could hold the enormous amounts of food that were necessary to feed a large staff. The butcher had band saws that could slice through entire sides of meat. Several other huge machines were used for steaming vegetables, a dough mixer with a capacity of 60 pounds for manufacturing bread, and several industrial ovens, grills, and deep fat fryers. Between 16,000 and 18,000 meals are produced daily by around 93 culinary specialist staff. The meals range from breakfast served at 6 a.m. to the midrat or midnight rations. Planning is Essential in order to accomplish this goal, the ship's cooks adhere to a menu cycle that lasts for 15 days and receive resupplies at sea once every week, including both dry and fresh commodities. The 5,000 crew members aboard an aircraft carrier can consume 1,600 pounds of chicken, 160 gallons of milk, 30 cases of cereal and 350 pounds of lettuce in a single day. Everything is produced in enormous quantities. Cooks are required to constantly prepare meals, do various activities and undergo training to learn new responsibilities. All galleys on carriers are sufficiently supplied. After every 7 to 10 days a supply ship will bring between 400,000 and 1 million pounds of food. When there's a need for a variation in the deliveries, it's not uncommon for regional foods to be included, such as feta cheese from Greece. The Navy plans its meals for the next 15 days in advance. They consist of meals designed to increase sailors' morale, such as Taco Tuesday and Mongolian Grill. They make it a point to ensure that each meal is cooked to a high standard, ensuring that the sailors can enjoy a satisfying meal even when they are thousands of miles away from their homes. The degree to which a culinary specialist excels at their work directly affects the morale of a ship's crew and the quality of living they enjoy on board. When a sailor is stationed at sea and their birthday falls within a given calendar month, they are given a celebratory lunch with a prime rib or lobster main course, complete with a tablecloth, wine glasses and pleasant background music. Let's talk about how these culinary specialists are able to make such a huge volume of food daily. A Navy culinary specialist's life requires a sailor willing to put in hard labor and not be afraid to get their hands dirty or work unusual and long hours. They get up every day at 3 in the morning to prepare breakfast, which must be ready by 6 in the morning. Additionally, time management is a vital skill for Navy culinary specialists. The utmost of importance is placed on effective time management. They must ensure that every minute is productive if they want to keep up with the demand of making thousands of meals daily. Additionally, there are a variety of responsibilities that fall within each culinary specialist's purview. Even if they have a lot of different responsibilities to fulfill, the food still needs to be prepared correctly and served on time. But like for culinary experts, has been made easier since modern aircraft carriers. Galleys have been constructed in such a way that cooking can be done easily. For example, let's look at how the USS Gerald R. Forbes galley is structured and operates. The Gerald R. Ford is the newest aircraft carrier built by the United States. The galleys that the Ford uses are modeled after those found on board ships of the amphibious transport dock San Antonio class, a design that is shown to be highly effective. In the past, only 2 galleys are in operation on aircraft carriers of the Ford class. Both the supply department at Ford and the food service division were tasked with developing standard operating procedures for running both the conglomerate galley simultaneously so that they could feed the crew and provide support for CVW-8. The meals are served to the crew chiefs and officers from 3 adjacent sides in one centralized galley located in the rear of the aircraft carrier. Because the meals components come from the same source and are being prepared by the same cooks, serving many lines of food from a single galley ensures that the meals will be consistent throughout. It discourages the preparation of special meals for the various messes, while at the same time improving the overall quality of the crew's meals. Both of the ship's kitchens are arranged along the ship's center line, and they are serviced by pallet-capable elevators positioned above palletized cold, dry and frozen storage areas. The food service cargo team can easily break out freeze, chill and dry supplies with a reasonably small team because this vertical integration features storerooms right beneath the galley. Vertical integration not only drastically reduces the need for huge working teams consisting of 50 to 100 people to support cargo movement, but also makes it possible for the food service division to function without interfering with the ship's regular operations. If you think the food on an aircraft carrier is well taken care of, there's many more amenities on board the ship that will amaze you. Some of the amenities you would find on an aircraft carrier include a laundry room that can wash and dry 50,000 pounds of clothing per week. Sailors spend most of their time at sea and as a result do not have access to the same variety of conveniences and facilities you would have daily. The United States Navy has practically made available to its sailors everything they would have access to if they were stationed on dry land. This was done to ensure that the sailors remain in the best possible physical condition and that their morale remains high enough to allow them to carry out their duties efficiently. One of such facilities is the grocery store. A grocery store is of high necessity on an aircraft carrier. Even if one disregards the fact that having junk food available will keep morale high, there are still a valid rationale for ships to include convenient stores. The sailors must keep a supply of their razors or hygiene goods and food. There are all kinds of things available. The Navy would provide some of these things to a sailor on board an aircraft carrier, but sometimes sailors might need certain things they can easily get it in the store. The store averages around $10,000 per day with over 1,050 transactions. Sailors can get whatever they want in the store and live a comfortable life even when sailors are on a particular diet. Protein shakes and potatoes are available, but candy and chocolate are also available. Also different kinds of coffee and other means to serve the sailors as best as possible. The crew can purchase tobacco products, phone cards and higher-priced items at the register. All proceeds go straight to morale, welfare and recreation, which lowers costs for Liberty Activities. Who exactly is in charge of running the convenience store that's located on an aircraft carrier? The individuals in control of the grocery store are the retail service specialists. They are in charge of running the grocery store and a variety of other operations on aircraft carriers. The retail service specialists were formerly known as ship servicemen. They were renamed in 2019. What if the grocery store runs out of stock? What happens? It's the same that would happen at a grocery store that's located on land. They'll simply replenish, but given that they are in the middle of the ocean, how can they possibly accomplish that? The Navy's process to supply everything a carrier requires while at sea, including food and other grocery items, is known as replenishment at sea. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the method of restocking. The process of transferring fuel, ammunition, stores and grocery store items from one ship to another while the ships are still in motion is referred to as replenishment at sea or underway replenishment. This technique was first developed in the early part of the 20th century. It was utilized extensively by the United States Navy as a logistical support technique in the Pacific theater of World War II. As a result, it made possible for United States carrier task forces to remain at sea indefinitely when the grocery store items need to be replenished. It's done so via underway replenishment. There are two different ways that replenishment can be done while a ship is in the sea: vertical replenishment and alongside connected replenishment. Let's start with the first strategy, which is called vertical replenishment. Vertical replenishment is a type of resupply that can be done while a ship is in motion. In this procedure, cargo is transferred from the ship that is delivering it to the ship that's receiving it using a helicopter. Vertical replenishment is also used to augment and speed up the stock transfer between ships conducted alongside connected replenishment. The primary benefit of this method is that the ships do not need to be dangerously close to one another, which eliminates the chance of an accident. However, the capacity of the helicopter places a cap on both the maximal load and the transfer speeds. Therefore, so many grocery items cannot be properly supplied at once via this method. The second approach is known as the alongside connected replenishment. It's the technique that's utilized most times in today's aircraft carriers. Alongside the connected replenishment is a standard method of transferring liquids such as fuel and fresh water along with ammunition and break bulk goods. It's also used for restocking grocery items. The United States Navy created a multi-product supply ship in the 1950s and 60s that was capable of delivering fuel, ammunition and stores while the ship was in transit. These ships were the first to implement a transfer system that makes use of ram tensioner to keep the high line between the ships tensioned. This enables a seamless transfer. This method eventually morphed into the standard tension replenishment alongside method or stream over time because it enables a greater amount of space to be maintained between the vessels. The stream rig is favored over other connected replenishment techniques. How's it done? The supply ship maintains a constant direction and speed ranging from 12 to 16 knots. Moving at a faster speed reduces the relative motion caused by the influence of the waves and enables better control of the vessels heading. The receiving ship will then approach the supply vessel until they are approximately 30 yards apart from one another. The supplier fires a gun line, pneumatic line thrower or shot line, which is then used to pull over a messenger line. This line is also called a shot line. This line is used to pull across other equipment such as distance line, phone line and transfer rig lines. The supply ship, which serves as the command ship for the replenishment operation, is responsible for providing all of the necessary lines and equipment for the transfer. In addition, the supply ship serves as the command center for all operations. Because of the relative positions of the ships, it's common practice for larger ships to set up multiple transfer rigs. This makes it possible to transfer items more quickly or to transfer a variety of different kinds of supplies. In addition, practically all ships used for resupply are designed to be able to handle two receivers at the same time to restock one of them from each side. The majority of ships can accept resupply on either side. Aircraft carriers on the U.S. Navy, however, always receive replenishments on the starboard side of the carrier. The layout of an aircraft carrier, which is the island and navigation bridge, is on the starboard side, does not allow for the carrier's port side to be used for replenishment. It is dangerous to perform alongside connected replenishment, because 2 or 3 ships traveling side by side at speed must maintain the same path and speed for a significant amount of time. In addition to this, the hydrodynamics of the 2 ships traveling near one another generates a suction between the ships. A minor miscalculation and steering on the part of one of the ships could result in a collision, as well as the rupture of the gasoline transfer lines and hoses when traveling at speeds of 12 knots. A change of heading of just 1 degree will result in a lateral speed of around 20 feet per minute. For this reason, experienced and qualified helmsmen are necessary during the replenishment, and the crew on the bridge must give their complete attention to the ship's path and speed during the replenishment process. The risk level is enhanced when a replenishment ship provides service to 2 ships simultaneously. In case of emergency, crews practice emergency breakaway procedures where the ships will separate in less than optimal situations. Even while the ships will be prevented from colliding with one another, it is still possible that the ships may be unable to complete the present transfer and will therefore lose some goods following the successful completion of the replenishment procedure. It's standard procedure for many U.S. Navy ships to separate from the providing vessel while simultaneously playing a distinctive tune over their supplied vessel's public address system. The supplies are transferred to the hangar to be sorted and distributed to the respective units. With this process, sailors will always have what they need at any point in time. Okay, let's head up top to the flight deck. The flight deck of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier is a busy and complex place with a wide range of activities taking place at any given time. There are several key roles and responsibilities that are carried out by different personnel on the flight deck, including aircraft handling, aircraft maintenance, and flight deck operations. Aircraft handling personnel are responsible for moving aircraft around the flight deck and positioning them for takeoff and landing. This includes directing the movement of aircraft with hand signals and verbal commands, as well as operating the aircraft handling equipment such as tractors and tow bars. Aircraft maintenance personnel are responsible for performing routine and scheduled maintenance on the aircraft, as well as making repairs as needed. This includes tasks such as servicing engines, inspecting and replacing components, and conducting inspections. Flight tech operations personnel are responsible for coordinating the movement and the activities of the aircraft on the flight deck, as well as managing the overall safety of the flight deck. This includes tasks such as controlling the flow of aircraft, directing traffic, and managing the aircraft launch and recovery cycle. But why are sailors kneeling right next to a plane taking off? The flight deck of an aircraft carrier is one of the most hazardous workplaces in the world. Sailors are exposed to a continually high noise level, and as many as 60 planes and 200 people, which are crammed into a little more than 4 acres of reinforced steel armor plate on the flight deck. Workers move in many directions, which may look chaotic to an observer unfamiliar with the procedure. However, the flight deck of a U.S. Navy carrier is one of the most well-organized man-made vehicles on Earth. It functions similarly to an orchestra, with each section responsible for executing a specific movement within the larger symphony of carrier operations. Because of all the noise generated by the carrier, the only way for the sailors to communicate with one another and carry out their respective duties is by using various gestures and signs. These sailors utilize a variety of gestures and signals to communicate with one another. One of the many gestures and signs that sailors on an aircraft carrier use to execute their operations is kneeling. It's common to observe sailors kneeling near an aircraft getting ready for takeoff from the ground. If the person kneeling near the aircraft is wearing a yellow shirt, then the person is the shooter, was giving the cat crew the signal to shoot the cat. If the person is seen wearing a green shirt, it indicates that he's a member of the cat crew and is waiting on the cat for the next aircraft to come up so that they can be fired. If his clothing is a different color, he's likely a quality assurance team member for the squadron and he's waiting for the next aircraft to taxi forward to the cat for the next shot. Before the aircraft can be launched from the catapult, he needs to perform a speedy inspection to check for any hydraulic or fuel leaks, as well as any other obvious issues. During a typical launch, a group of 10 people will be situated in the box of the deck between the cats. These individuals are the cat crew, the ordnance department members, and the QA final checkers. Hand signaling is another typical gestures that sailors use besides kneeling. In reality, the hand signals for all the launches and recoveries are nearly identical. If a pilot comes up with a new maneuver on the fly, there's a chance that it could be misinterpreted as something else, which could lead to a disastrous conclusion. After startup, when the pilot indicates that he's ready to take off, he will give the plane captain the thumbs up signal. After then, the plane's captain and the pilot will wait until someone wearing a yellow shirt arrives to take command of the aircraft. An aircraft will remain stationary on the flight deck unless a yellow shirt controls it. These directors will always be there to regulate the movements of the aircraft regardless of whether the aircraft is Taxing or being towed. All signals to be communicated to the pilots will be done so above the waist, while those to be communicated to the other members of the flight deck will be done so below the waist. The yellow shirt will first confirm the thumbs up to go flying and then pass the signal break down the aircraft. The arms are being moved in sweeping motions, which indicates that the chocks and chains will be removed from the airplane and they will only be kept in position by the brakes following. The disassembly of the aircraft. Taxi signals are utilized to guide the aircraft around the flight deck in the world of aviation. The last of a series of checks. The pilot brings all of the aircraft's engines up to their maximum power setting. As soon as the engines have reached their max output, the catapult is activated, which causes the airplane to accelerate from 0 to 160 knots in less than 2 seconds. Steam is let into the catapult by opening the launching valve assembly in response to a signal from the catapult safety observer, who's located on the flight deck. The aircraft's weight and wind speed over the deck are the two factors that decide how long the valves are allowed to remain open. The hold back is released, forcing the pistons and the shuttle forward, accelerating the aircraft along the 300-foot deck. It takes less than 2 seconds for a plane that weighs 60,000 pounds to reach speeds of more than 150 miles an hour. Wow, seems like a lot of work. There are also a number of traditions on the ship. For example, sailors have the opportunity to jump off the ship, called a swim call. Why do sailors risk their lives to jump off the aircraft carrier? Swim calls are a huge tradition for U.S. Navy sailors. At the time of their inception, swim calls for an opportunity for sailors to have a bath, seeing as there was no constant supply of water back then. Now they are often seen as a break. It's necessary for the crew members to take a breather from their regular activities and blow off some steam, which is where swim calls come into play. The co usually checks if the sea is suitable for sailors to take a warm dive by checking the seawater injection temperature before instructing the captain to notify all departments of the aircraft carrier. Not everyone that has engaged in a swim call has been lucky enough to enjoy the appropriate temperature. Crew members aboard a submarine sometimes have to take part in the century-old naval tradition in ice-cold seas. It's a sought-after event, as sailors are guaranteed to have a blast swimming in such a vast amount of water, even though they are required to stay close to the carrier while preparing to jump off the side of the vessel. Sometimes sailors engage in a whimsical competition for more enjoyment. Some competitions involve sailors dressing up in costumes before diving into the water.